everyone, Ange Drake here, back for episode number 2 in my summer shred. So this little episode series is walking you through a 3-part series going through my current fat loss phase. Now, if you can hear some barbells being slammed behind me, that's because I am recording here at 23W Preston, so please excuse the background noise. So this is week 4. So I am currently 4 weeks into our summer challenge. So I thought this would be a really great chance to jump on and share with you how I am getting on. I'm going to be talking to you about where I feel like I'm doing really well, where are the areas for improvement, as well as chatting to you a little bit about the science around weight loss and specifically when we're talking about scale weight. And also I'll be talking to you a little bit about HIIT training or sprint training, sprint interval training as well. So first of all, let's start by just jumping into how I am actually getting on. So as I said, this is week 4 of the challenge. I feel like my training consistency has been really great. I've hit my 4 weight sessions per week, which was what I was aiming to do. I have been following my percentages of my 1RNs. Some days I had been coming into the gym a little sore, maybe backing off the weights and a couple of lifts, but mostly I would give myself a huge pat on the back for following my program. So that's probably my first most important point is, guys, if you're jumping around all over the place with your strength work, with your weights work, it is really important that you stick to some form of programming that has progressive overload built into it so that you are planning to get stronger. And especially if you are in a fat loss zone, you want to be making sure you're stimulating your body to keep the muscle mass on. And if you are just YOLOing it, for example, if I was just YOLOing my strength sessions, there's been quite a few sessions that if I didn't have a plan to follow, coming back in, I probably would be like, oh, I'm a bit sore, maybe I'll just change out and I'll do something else. But I haven't done that. I've gotten into my program, I've been more than fine, and I am training 4 times per week. So that actually has been giving me quite a substantial amount of rest days that has allowed me to come back into the gym following a rest day. So when it comes to strength training and setting out how many strength sessions you might be doing a week, if you are just starting out on your journey, you might be only opting for, say, 2 or 3. And if you are a little bit more of a seasoned lifter, you could be aiming for 3 or 4, maybe even up to 5. But as I said in that last video, really check in with yourself and ask yourself, how well are you actually recovering from your sessions? And do you actually need that extra rest day and time away from the weights? I have been doing my 1 to 2 HIIT sessions a week, and while I'm really proud that I've been getting something done, this is also going to be an area for small improvements, and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. And then I've been pretty busy. I've been getting my steps up, so we know that when we are able to see an increase in our overall daily NEAT, so non-exercise thermogenesis, the amount of steps we're getting per day, is a really good indication of the fact that we're being more active. We are more likely to be burning calories, and that is a very, that's a very positive factor that will help lead to weight loss just by increasing just general activity throughout the day. And when you're dieting, you do generally look for ways that you can shortchange that and spend more time on the couch. So I feel like I've done well in that bucket. Which then kind of comes to my improvements. I've got to admit here, guys, this 6 weeks, I didn't quite anticipate over the last 4 weeks how busy and jam-packed my life was going to be. Pretty much every single weekend I've had something social on. So I have had a little bit more alcohol than probably what I would normally have. I have been in sort of party situations where there's been party food, and while I'm trying to make good choices, I definitely think that when it comes to being in an energy deficit, there's been probably some days where I've really struggled to be able to stay in a deficit intake. I've had sick kids, which obviously then plays a factor into how much time I've got and just general energy to be able to meal prep, stick to my foods, not want to overeat, eat more carbohydrates, all those things that when you are more stressed out, it is much harder to stick to the plan. As I said, I wouldn't say that I've been awful, but I know that there's definitely been areas that I could have done better. And some of these factors are outside of my control. So I'm saying this as very objectively, without any sort of emotional attachment there either. And then I've also been working a little bit more, which kind of, I guess, working more and being more busy, sometimes that's really actually helpful for weight loss, because it means that you are moving more and maybe there's less time for grazing around the house. But then inevitably sometimes that means as a business owner and also as a coach, it means that sometimes I might go for longer periods of time without eating. And then when I actually do go to eat, I'm more likely to overeat in that meal because the tank is more empty. And I've kind of missed the mark on that whole blood, being able to regulate my blood glucose levels. And if we're able to eat at consistent times, not go long periods of time without eating, and be able to better regulate what the blood glucose is doing, we generally find that we're able to have much better control to be able to follow a portion plate. So do keep that in mind if that's you. And I definitely know that I fall into this camp that I generally eat really well unless I go too long without eating, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm so hungry, I get really lightheaded, I can feel that blood pressure drop, and even after having, say, a full lunch, whether it's got the balanced carbs, the proteins, I still feel quite unwell, so I need to keep topping up the tank, which inevitably ends up meaning that, as I said, you do overeat, which is what I find is the biggest pitfall for me when I have tried to do intermittent fasting before. And it is also why I much prefer like a time-restricted eating approach, where I will finish eating my last meal of the day at a certain point in time, and then I am more than fine to go through to breakfast, and then start making sure that I'm eating at a regular intervals throughout the day. So I don't know whether any of that information has helped kind of you be a little bit more self-reflective, but I certainly know for me, when I think about what are the small little habits that help me eat really well, stay on track, and stay in that energy deficit, stay in a diet, those are the factors that definitely help me. So I've been busy, I've had lots of parties on, I've had sick kids, extra shifts. So despite all of this, I did jump on the InBody scanner, and I am 1.3% body fat down, which is awesome. And I'm also 900 grams of muscle mass up. Now, interestingly enough, when I look at my scale weight, it is the same, slightly heavier by 200 grams. Now, this is a common thing I find with a lot of women who are just getting on the scales, and they might be 2 to 3 weeks in or 4 weeks into a weight loss journey, and the scale weight has not changed, and they are very frustrated. They feel like they've done the right thing, and they're there going like, do I need to cut more calories? Do I need to do more? Like, am I just the sort of person that just cannot lose weight? Now, this message is for you. Occasionally that might mean that you've missed the mark on being in an energy deficit. And look, as I said, for me, I definitely know I could, over the last 4 weeks, there are certain areas where I feel like I could have improved with my diet. But I also am fully aware that I've gone from being very lackluster with my training to then being back to a dedicated program. So whether this is you being completely new to weights, or whether this is you stepping up your training intensity, what you will find is that at a short-term perspective, when you train, you see an inflammation in the cells, which means that they are more likely to be holding on to water, and therefore you are more likely to weigh more because of that acute inflammation that's happening at a cellular level that's there trying to repair muscle cells. So when you first training, it is really, 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 really common to see your weight go up. And it's really important that you don't get derailed by this, because it is a naturally occurring phenomenon. And that acute inflammation will go down as you get your rest and as your body gets used to the training load. But at another level, you've also got to remember that your scale weight is only reflecting back to you what you weigh. It's not reflecting back to you your muscle mass and your fat mass. Now, obviously we have the ability to do a scan here at the gym, so I could give you that breakdown, but do not read too much into scale weight, because scale weight alone will only give you one part of the picture, and that is what you weigh on that day. It will not tell you if you put on muscle mass. So for example, I've almost put on 1 kilo of muscle mass since getting back to regular training. And that's because that's where my body likes to be. It's been there before. I'm back to training using a progressive style of training. And as I said, this program, it is very much targeted towards strength gains. So it's been pushing me, yeah. So I put on 900 grams of muscle mass. That would not be reflective back to me in a set of bathroom scales. The other thing is like natural fluctuations in your body weight across a month, like if you are cycling, and the impact of that, what you've eaten the night before, what food is in your gut. All of those factors play a significant role. So I much prefer to go off how I'm looking, how I'm feeling, how does my gut health feel, also how are clothes feeling to me around my midsection. And I would definitely say over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed that clothes that were getting a little tight around the midsection is getting a little bit more comfortable. I'm also noticing a little bit more visible definition in my body, especially my legs and my upper body. So please, team, do not put all of your trust in scale weight. It can sometimes be very misleading, and it can completely derail you. It's not to say that you shouldn't be reflective. As I said, I've been reflective. I definitely know there's been some afternoons where my snacking has been, more out of control, and I probably could have regulated that better by making sure I was more conscious of how I was fueling myself for the day. And I guess that is also the other pitfall of not actually tracking calories for me, and flexible dieting, is that while just eyeballing food and planning food, especially if you are quite active, you could fall into the trap of actually undereating in certain meals and then needing to overeat in a few days' time because your body is lacking what it needs. And this is probably, for me, who is quite active, who sometimes has days where I'll easily accumulate 20,000 steps. I'll train, I'll coach, I might even take a Pilates session where I'm doing a little bit of it, where my caloric needs could be absolutely through the roof, versus other days where I'm not working, I'm looking after the kids and it's raining and I'm not really doing much at all. So it is really important to understand your caloric needs for the day and continuing to be self-reflective of what your body actually needs. And going back to probably another area for me to really improve upon is that anabolic window after training. I usually train and then I'm usually jumping straight into coaching a session here at 23W. And that can sometimes be problematic because it might mean that I'm not fueling myself adequately enough straight away after my workout. So moving on for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to really focus in on making sure I'm having that protein shake after I finish training, even though I might have something else planned. Like I have something else planned, but then I kind of forget to eat it, or like time just passes and then I'm like, okay, well, I just might as well have lunch. I'm not hungry, but then I get over hungry. So I'm not going to bore you with the details. The main reason why I'm bringing this up to you is that I want you guys to be reflective on what you need and look for those small 1% things that make a difference in your world. And they are the things that will make a difference in my world. And as I said, I hope this helps for you. The last thing I want to chat about is HIIT, or sprint interval training. So HIIT is high intensity training. Sprint interval training is using a form of sprints to also work at a high intensity. Now, a common question I get asked is, hang on, as women, should we be doing that type of training? Because I've heard that it also increases cortisol, and cortisol is bad for the body. Cortisol helps us put on or makes us put on extra abdominal fat. and therefore isn't that the reverse of what we're trying to achieve here? So I wanted to talk a little bit about HIIT training and high interval training and sprint interval training. So first up, if you are not active at all and you are needing a place to start, I wouldn't start with HIIT training and I wouldn't start with sprint interval training, because it is a more advanced style of training. You're talking about powerful, explosive styles of training. I would start with strength training, and by building up those foundations, you're going to find that you're going to have all that foundational strength that's going to help you move better in HIIT and sprint interval training. So then when you go to move fast, you've got the muscle endurance to make sure that you're moving really well without hurting yourself. So where I start is I'd start off with strength training 2 to 3 times a week and get stronger first. And that's the same recommendation if you're thinking about starting running. Start with a strength training program first, get your foundational strength, and then introduce your running or introduce your HIIT or introduce your sprint training. Now, I've been training for some time, so the new thing that's in my program for this 6 weeks is making sure that I'm doing some HIIT and some sprint interval training. So where this is different and why it is I recommend this for women who are already strength training, and they're wanting to accelerate their body composition. They're wanting to see increased fat loss. They're wanting to see increased protein synthesis. They're wanting to see improved body composition. I may have just mentioned that. Do you get the idea? And you're already strength training 2 to 3 times a week and you're ready to add something else in. I highly recommend HIIT training and sprint interval training, and especially if you're going through that perimenopause, menopause transition, definitely be adding this in to be helping to regulate the drop. I'll say that again, because that as sprint training and HIIT interval training, HIIT will help you offset the effects you're getting from the drop in your estrogen and progesterone levels. Now, if this is something that specifically interests you, please make sure you get in touch and register for our wait list on our course. I'm going to be dropping over the next couple of weeks, 5-part course that's specifically focused for perimenopause, menopause, and women, helping them go through that transition, talking about different styles of training, why it's beneficial. But just globally, when it comes to HIIT and sprint interval training, it causes an acute inflammatory response. Acute, it's kind of like immediate. And that acute response actually is beneficial at helping lessen the systemic inflammation response that you might be receiving from work stress, life stress, and it will actually help offset that, because it will help to lift, it will help to stimulate and enhance blood glucose and insulin sensitivity. So it will help offset what cortisol is creating. And when cortisol is high in the body, it will make us more insulin resistant. So including HIIT training in the body actually helps us better utilize glucose. It helps to stimulate enzymes that help us to metabolize carbohydrates, and also helps us synthesize muscle proteins. So that acute response actually will help offset the systemic cortisol that might be coming from other lifestyle factors. Now, here is the catch. Your HIIT training needs to be done sparingly, so it's acute. It shouldn't get to the point where it's also systemic. So your HIIT sessions should last for 20 to 30 minutes and maybe 1 to 2 sessions a week, especially if you're a busy woman and you've already got a high amount of cortisol in your life. It's like a Goldilocks approach. It's like a little bit is good, but too much might be too much for you. Okay, so think about your life and think about what you can manage, but it will definitely be beneficial at helping lipid turnover. It will help enhance the body's ability to use and store glucose, which is obviously really beneficial for weight loss. Okay, so hopefully that's clarified the question on whether women should be doing HIIT or sprint training. If you're a beginner, maybe not just yet. If you're well trained and you're strength training regularly and you're ready for that little 10x on your body composition, absolutely, you should be doing it. But just be mindful of how much stress, chronic stress you've got in your week. If you're not sleeping well, maybe if you didn't sleep well that night, or the kid's been sick in a hospital, or you've been running around, maybe leave off the rest of the week. Listen to your body. Probably the most important thing I've got to say in that point. I really hope that's clarified a few things. Thank you for jumping on and listening to week 4. The next edition is going to be the last one. I've got 2 weeks to bring this home. As I said, I'm gunning for 2% drop in body fat. I am going to be really focusing in on dialing down the nutrition, making sure I'm getting plenty of rest, really taking really good care of myself. So I can't wait to let you know how I get on with this. And I'll be sharing some body composition pictures in the next episode. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of a rant, and I can't wait to speak to you all soon. Bye.